over here.
Time just got turned back. We're back in 2010 with the Urban Decay Naked one. They listened to the customers, and the customers, they were demanding bring back freaking Naked one, and here it is. So which one is the new, which one is the old? Very hard to tell because they look exactly the same. But let me tell you, this here is the old one and this is the new one. If you actually happen to have both and they look in a very similar condition like mine do, which I will explain in a second, then check on the back. Because first of all, I put the sticker here that this is the old one. The writing also looks the same, and I want to take away just like the first thing that I didn't hear a lot, at least on Instagram. I haven't watched the YouTube reviews. I know that some mentioned that, but I want to mention it here too. The new Urban Decay Naked 1 palette has less product in it, so let's get that right out of the way. Let's get that right out of the way. The old version comes with 12 shades where each have 1.3 gram of product, while the new version, aside from the fact that it looks the exact same, it comes with 12 pans that have each 1 gram of product. So you get 0.3 grams less per pan. Is this really worth talking about? Usually not, but if you also consider the fact that the new version is like 10 or even 15 euro more expensive than the old version used to be in 2010 or 2012, whatever, I think that's not a cool move. So I want to criticize that right in the beginning because this is 100% cash grab. And yes, I call this a cash grab because Urban Decay wanted to make as much money as possible on a palette they released 14 years ago and that the community is missing still to this date. And they did it. As far as I have seen on the Urban Decay website, the UK, not the UK one, the US one, it is sold out. In Germany, some retailers still have them, and I will link some international places down below, like Cultbeauty has it too, Beautybay still has it as of today. Again, I will put the links down below if you want to get this. Personally, I think 62 euro, this is what the palette costs here for me on Cultbeauty and on Beautybay. That's a statement, honestly. And I don't know what I feel about this statement. Because before we start into the looks that you will see too, by the way, I planned for this video, and I also have comparison swatches between old and new one, and I want to talk about these a bit. I just want to put a bit into perspective what 60 euro can also get you. So for around 60 euro, you could also still buy the Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge palette that, yes, it is different to Urban Decay Naked, but this is like a more versatile palette with more variety than Naked, in my opinion. You can also add a couple euros and either get a Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette where the quality and the formulation is insanely good, or you can also add a couple more bucks and get a Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette that after his re-release is still available on most retailers. And honestly, I just want to say it right away that I think the quality of this one is beyond Urban Decay. But you can also say, okay, let's take 62 euro divided by 2, then I have 31 euro, and then you can get 2 of the big Beautybay palettes. 2, yes, you can get, for example, the neutral one, which in my opinion has a lot of shades that you can also find in the Urban Decay Naked, and even more since this is 30 pan, and you can get even a second 30 pan, and you can get something else because they're constantly on sale. So I just want to put that in the perspective that Urban Decay takes a formulation that they, for the most part, had 14 years ago, puts them in a 2024 palette with nearly no update. There are some glow ups formula-wise, but not a lot, and sells it for more with less product than they had 14 years ago. To me, Aside from the nostalgia here, this has a very, very bitter taste. But at the end, the decision is up to you. I just want to make you aware of that. So I've seen on Reddit a lot of people saying that the new Naked and the old Naked are completely different palettes. I will not tell you now which one is which, so I removed the brush of one. So when I hold them up like this, can you tell which one is which? Honestly, I don't think so. There are two shades in here that, in my opinion, look different in the pan. But other than that, if you don't know what I mean, you probably can't see it. But to give you, of course, the answer, the upper one was the new one and the lower one, the old one. So why does my old one look fairly new? Mainly because it is. I never owned Urban Decay Naked 1 back then. My first Urban Decay palette was actually Naked 3. Oh, and I love that. I completely destroyed that palette because I was in my rose and mauve phase back then, and I used that palette to death. And honestly, when I see this format of palette, while I hate these long rectangular pans, the urge to buy a Naked 3 is there. I kind of want to have a Naked 3, although I'm pretty sure I can use better quality here in my collection that I already have and be happier. But okay, that's not the point here. So I got myself one off of eBay for, I think I paid €12 or so. And I did this because I wanted to compare them. And here we have now the compared swatches. Let's be honest here. Do you really see a difference? There is nearly no difference. What I want to say is that the second and the fourth shade, so Sin and Sidecar, they are different. They do look a tad bit different in the swatches, but I think the main difference is in the formulation. Both of these shades feel much thinner, and especially Sidecar reminds me a lot of the Moondust formulation, but not as sparkly. Other than that, everything else looks the exact same. And people on Reddit, they have been bashing the new Urban Decay palette because they were all like, oh my god, this looks completely different. It does not. Did it came to their mind that it could be because their palette is 14 years old and they're still using it? I don't want to shame anybody because I would do that too, but quality changes even in powder eyeshadow. The pigments can lose saturation. They can start to be crumbly and patchy, and of course, they will then swatch very, very different to a new version. In general, the formula did get an update, in my opinion, just talking about how they felt when I swatched them. The new one is thinner, but with better pigment, in my opinion. But honestly, the quality difference is so subtle. Again, that does not justify the fact that you put less product in the palette and want to have more money for it. So that's just a very bitter taste. But I wanted to get that out of the way. This, what you see here, is the first look, and I want to give you a little bit of a spoiler thing here. So, this palette, this style of palette, this, let me hold it up once more so you know what I'm talking about. It's not me. This is so completely not my style. I bought it because also of the nostalgia, because I never owned one. I wanted to make this work, or I want to make this work for me in the most possible way without adding something so insanely loud like a glitter, for example, like a Lemonhead LA or a Slayfire Cosmetics glitter, or adding, I don't know, like something from the Lightwork 5. I'm still waiting for my Lightwork 6, by the way, when I film this. Hopefully I have it when you see the video. Or adding, I don't know, doing a look with the darker gray shadows and then add Leon from Moon's Eye. That would not be cool for review, honestly. So what I will do is I will add something to amp up looks, and that will be the Moondust quad. This is the Space Rider quad, and for the first look, as you see, I already did that in a very, very subtle way, and I will do that for the second look too. I just want to create a look that I feel comfortable with, but that does not pull you away from the expression of the eyeshadow palette. So both looks I will do first without the Moondust quad, and before finishing the looks I will add my little adjustments to that look. So for this, for example, I used 2 shades from the Moondust palette. One I really just dusted on top of everything to gloss it up a bit, and then I added 1 shade on top of my already done inner corner highlight to just intensify it a bit and use it as brow bone highlight. But now, enough of the ramble, let's head into the 2 looks and then to my final thoughts. So I start this look with the shade Naked, and that one goes directly in the transition area and crease. I then go into Buck, and I use the brush that comes in the palette. I used to love them back then. So I apply this in the crease then for depth. And this technically does not have any deeper matte shades than Buck, but since a lot of them here are more on the satin side, I can totally use them. So I go now into Hustle, and I apply this on the outer half or outer third of the lid and also in the crease a bit. I think there is just a certain vibe to a tad bit shimmery crease or blend in general. So I kind of like doing that. So I applied my glitter glue, and now I go into the shade Smog, and I start to tap this in the center and then bring it outwards and whatever is left slightly inwards. I then go into Sidecar, and that one I apply on the rest of the lid and swipe it on top of Smog. I think that look needs a bit more darkness, so I go very softly into Creep. And this one I just swipe here and a V motion on. I go with a nude waterline with that look, and for that I take the Victoria Beckham, the brightening pencil, and line the waterline with that. I then tap into Creep again and smudge this on the outer third, outer half. And then I go into Buck and smudge this on the rest of the lower lash line and also on top of Creep to diffuse it. I now go into Sin and apply this as inner corner highlight. And this could be a nice, neutral, soft look, but not for me. I just wanted to show you how it looks. I mean, just imagine the mascara and brows done. It will be nice, but I want to have more sparkle. That's just my vibe. So I'm also adding in the Moondust palette. This is the Space Rider one, and I just incorporate some of these shades here. It doesn't even have to be ultra intense. I just want to amp up this look a bit. So I go into Cosmic Space Dust with a bigger brush, and I very gently tap this on the complete lid. It didn't add a lot, it just adds a tad bit more oomph. And I also go into Star Cowgirl and apply this on top of Sin. And here we have the first finished look. On the lips I'm wearing the Natasha Denona from not the I Need a Nude, the My Dream collection, the My Dream lip pencil, and I also applied the My Dream lipstick. And I kind of think that I will also apply the gloss later on before I leave for work, because I like the way how all 3 just look together combined. But talking about the look, I also added the Space Cowgirl, Star Cowgirl as brow bone highlight. Adding these shades from the Moondust palette might not do a lot for you on camera, but I promise you in real life it just gave it a glossy effect, because the shimmers in my opinion are just, they're plain satins, they're not really oomphy, and that is probably the whole charm of this palette, that they are like that. They are true neutrals. But I'm not a neutral girl, so I try, of course, to make this palette work in a manner for me that I feel comfortable with. But now, let's head over to look number 2. For look number 2, I go straight up into Gunmetal, and I apply this on the outer third of the lid, and I also blend it out a tad bit. I now go into Buck, And I start to blend this on the center of the crease and bring it inwards and a tad outwards. And then I go into Virgin and I run this on the outer lines to just soften everything a bit. I applied my glitter glue and now I go into Dark Horse and I start to apply this basically a tad bit on top of that gunmetal shade, but I mainly keep it in the center of the lid and just tap it out. And I also went back into gunmetal to just build up that outer third, outer fourth. I now go into Half Baked and apply this on the rest of the lid and then gently swipe it on top of Dark Horse. Technically not a gunmetal, but I thought that might match. This is Mainline, the 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil from Urban Decay. It is a blue, but I hope it matches the gunmetal vibe. And the tip just broke off. Let's try that again. So I line my waterline with that. It's a bit too blue, but I can make it work. I go into gunmetal here again. And I use this straight on the lower lash line and blend that out, but not all the way in. And I then use Buck. And I also tapped into Virgin again with that fluffy brush, and I just very, very gently fluff that out. So for the inner corner highlight, I could be using Sin or Sidecar again, but since this overall look here is, in my opinion, first of all, it's very, very interesting, that warm to more cool toned gunmetal color. I actually want to pull in the Moondust again, and I'm using Space Cowboy. And I apply this as inner corner highlight. I think that just matches this loud look very, very much. There is just something insanely special about Space Cowboy that even me, who's not a full-on neutral girly, even I cannot run away from it. And here we have now the second finished look. On the lips, I'm wearing the MAC Stone lip liner. Topped it off with MAC Viva Planet from the new Maximal lipsticks. It's a nice kind of cool toned, kind of not nude, but I didn't like it, so I then also topped that off with the Givenchy Rose Perfetto Lip Balm, and this is the shade 1110. I think it's called Milky Nude or something. I haven't worn this in forever, and I just reminded myself of why I like these so much. This look is definitely more me, and even if you do not want to pull in anything else like I did with the Moondust Quad, you could totally use, for example, Sidecar as a very similar effect on the eye. Sidecar, as said, does remind me a lot of the Moondust formulation from Urban Decay, but it's not as thin. There is a tad bit of a quality difference between those. So let's talk about the palette in general and my thoughts from the intro. Aside from the thing that you pay more to get less in this palette, I think that the formulation is good. I have nothing bad to say about neither the matte formulation nor that metallic formulation. Personally, I just wish that there was more mattes, but that was always my concern with Urban Decay palettes. I like in this Naked format, I didn't like the ratio between mattes and shimmers. But since these metallics are not as intense and punchy as a reflective, even like mirror-like metallic can look in the eye, you can use them as I did also in the crease. But if you really do not like a shimmery metallic satin crease, then you are very limited, only have a Naked and Buck in that palette. This is a very, very basic palette. So let me group my thoughts a bit in different categories. Talking about my personal excitement, as you might have guessed, it's not that high because it is a plain neutral palette, but what drives me actually here is the nostalgia. as said in the intro, I never owned the Naked. This is my first time, and I don't want to say that I was overhyped. I was not. I knew what I put myself into here. I knew what to expect. I knew that I do not have to expect, I don't know, like a Narimi quality or Cherry App or Blend Bunny or. I was totally aware of that, but my excitement therefore is more so in the mid-level, in the better mid-level. The color story of this palette, it's a neutral palette that has kind of this shift of being neutral with a bit of warmth but a bit of cool tone to cancel that warmth out. And overall, I think it is nicely balanced and I can work with that. And I mean, look at this eyeshadow look. This has both of the worlds of warm and cool tone, because you have the warm golds that are in this eye look and they go into this gray gunmetal color. Usually this is not something I would do, but I'm forced to do with this palette, and when I just check that look, yes, I do like it. I have nothing bad to say about that. So color story wise, I think this is very well balanced and I like that color story. But now the quality, and that is, I think, the part that is the hardest for me to describe, because as said, it's a good quality. But just put, as we did in the intro, into perspective, maybe with your own collection too, what can you get for 60 bucks? I think in the US this sells for $54 or so. So I'm even more surprised that it's more expensive here on the EU side, but also I'm kind of not because of taxes and stuff. So at the end, I think we are all paying about the same price. But what can you get for this price? What else is on the market these days? And honestly, while I understand that Urban Decay wanted to bring back that OG palette to the audience because they were demanding it so hardcore, I wish that Urban Decay took the chance and amped up everything in this palette, but they didn't. And that is, for the price tag, honestly, a bit disappointing. While I like what I can do with this palette, while I think I can work with this palette very easy and very foolproof, I also want to say that the quality reminds me a lot of the Wet n Wild 10 pan palettes that I used to love before I switched everything to high-end and luxury and indie. And they're a fraction of the price, you know? And the quality of the mattes is very similar. I'd say the Urban Decay one are a tad bit more creamier, but the metal, the metallics, the shimmers, where's the difference? And having that in mind, I think just that whole concept of a palette being so popular, sold for a way higher price than back then, but still with the quality of 14 years ago. Don't like that. Not gonna lie, I don't like that tactic. They could have amped up this formulation. They didn't even have to touch Virgin, Naked and Buck. Let them as they are. Also, let Creep as it is, with this matte and the silver shimmery throughout, fine. Gunmetal, okay, cool. But Sin, Sidecar, Half-Baked, Smog, I'd also say Dark Horse, maybe not Hustle because I like the satin finish of it. And okay, Toasted I didn't use, but maybe even Toasted. If they would have reformulated these with the same color but a better quality, maybe borderline have a moon dust quality, and they can be impactful and shiny too, then that would have been a much better version, and that actually would have made me justify the higher price tag. And I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people out there who will hate me for that I'm saying this, but you know, I understand you. I understand your nostalgia. And I had a comment from a friend Danielle from Fedora Beauty. She commented that she does not care what anybody has to say about this palette. For her, it's a pure trip down memory lane, so she doesn't care if anybody gives it a bad review. And honestly, if there is a palette where this is the best thought behind that, and the best reason to really fuck on any review, I understand that it is the Naked palette, and I do truly understand that. For me, I do not have that one memory palette, maybe like in this intensity, but for example, for me at this point, it would be any Zamaya palette. I don't care what people say about the Zamaya palettes. I love them. I love the brand, and I fully support that brand with whatever they launch. And I don't have to accept everything or be okay with everything, because like that face gem things or that Lashify kit, not for me, but go for it, Zamaya. We love that. And I love every single palette, although I have some thoughts on qualities, but I understand the chokehold Urban Decay Naked has on people, because for a whole generation, this was their first better quality eyeshadow. It was the first thing. It was the thing that maybe even at some point started YouTube, and maybe at some point started a whole generation to be interested in this kind of art. So I give it that. But for everybody who maybe is not as emotionally attached to a product like this and is getting this because they had very good memories of this palette and they just want to relive maybe some of their youth and years, and back then, you know, 14 years ago, how old was I 14 years ago? I was fucking 19, 19, 18? 19. I was fucking 19. And I was not able to afford a palette like this back then. And I'm pretty sure that when I was 19, Urban Decay wasn't even available in Germany. I think they became available with the Naked 3, although not even Naked 3 I bought in Germany. I think that one I bought either in the UK or through UK shop, and I paid a shit ton of money for that. But do you know what I mean? I understand that, but I want to try to give you the most objective review on this that you probably can find without having emotions getting into the way. And from that objective point of view, honestly, I have to say that this is not worth buying. From an emotional point of view, honestly, do it. Go for it. Buy yourself the one that you are going to use like you did 14 years ago, and get yourself one that you just put up in the glass container and then you have it for the memories. I understand that. So please do not feel offended by a makeup review. I just try to give perspectives, and I just try to look at it from every point of view that I can think of. Let me please know down below, what do you think? Was it a good move from Urban Decay to bring back that same palette? Do you wish they'd bring back more? I already saw some people demanding the Naked 2. I would be actually interested in that too, since this is a cool toned palette, very gray and smoky one, and I'm all here for it. So let me know down below your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out any cool videos, and I hope you like that, and I see you in the next one.